Alright, another day, another video, but what could I talk about today? Let me think. Wait, are my thoughts in English? Okay, that's crazy, and this is how far YouTube has gotten me, I think. But focus, back to topic. Video today, what could you talk about? Honestly, I don't know. To be honest, I think I would rather go out shooting. But it would have to be something very cool and very memorable to make me get up from this chair. Okay, sold. This is what I'm asking for. See you laters. And here I am back again to finally make this video, so let me tell you what happened. A couple of weeks ago I was in Berlin, and since my main goal was to go out and shoot a lot, I also asked over on Instagram if anybody in Berlin would be down to go out shooting together. And this guy, Vince, who I've been talking to several times before on Instagram, did not only reach out but also had a very cool idea for a location to explore. The place he had in mind was an abandoned swimming pool right in the middle of a popular area in Berlin. I've never heard of this place before, but apparently it's a swimming pool that already closed down back in 2002 and caught fire several times over the last years, and now basically was left to itself to dissolve. So it's still there today, but in relatively rough shape, so of course I was interested and wanted to take some pictures there. Generally, this place was not very hard to find, but since there were a lot of trees and bushes kind of covering up the entrance places, it still felt like a proper adventure.
Boah, krass, hier liegt überall noch das Glas.
So I had my Leica M6 with me with the 35mm and the 15mm Voigtländer lenses, and I also had the chance to try out Vince's 50mm Summicron he recently got for his Leica M3, so I think this was a very cool variety of lenses I got to shoot on that day. After finishing a roll of Kodak Ultra Max I had still in my M6, I switched to a roll of Agfa Vista 800, which was very old and heavily expired, but shout out to East Block Boy for gifting me this roll alongside some other rolls. I rated this roll at ISO 600, but now in hindsight I think this was maybe a bit too brave and too ambitious, because most of my shots came out very grainy, very gritty and heavily underexposed. I think I was a bit unlucky with this roll, because East Block Boy, who gifted me this one, had really nice results with some of his rolls shot at ISO 600, but I think I also have to blame it partly on myself, because I could have easily exposed this roll at ISO 400 or even ISO 200. But to be honest, I think I was a bit too lazy to shoot a slow film and use my tripod, so yeah, that's what you get from that. But let's get back to the place we were exploring. Nowadays it's more of a hangout place for the punk scene and the cool kids out there. We were not the only ones on that day, there were several other people, amongst others also a camera team that were capturing some footage on this place. And judging by the graffiti and the interior of some of the rooms in these buildings, I assume that some people might also use it for more than just a day trip. Up to this day, there are still a lot of myths surrounded by this place, especially how and why it caught fire several times. The swimming pool had to close down because of hygiene reasons, and some people say that this might have been a very expensive cause for the owner, so some people even say that maybe the fires were not done by accident, but who knows. stay on the weird and experimental side of film stocks, I later loaded in a roll of Svema Astrum 400, which is a Ukrainian black and white film that also covers some of the infrared spectrum. Apparently this film has a very thin base and also a very long lever, which made it relatively hard to load it into my camera. I think it took me at least 10 tries to finally load it in properly, which by the way I all have on video, but I'm gonna save them for me because they will probably be longer than the whole video is right now.
Ah, das hört sich doch gut an. Okay, das sieht doch gut aus.
Ja? Okay, sehr gut.
Das war eine schwere Geburt, ey. Ja, guck, das sieht gut aus.
Träumchen.
But apart from the difficulties I had in handling the film at first, I think the results came out quite nice. The film, I would say, is very sharp and very contrasty, yet doesn't show a significant amount of grain, which I think is a very interesting combination. And for you out there who develop yourself, it was a bit tricky to find developing times for all of the developers out there. So just so you know, I developed this roll in Kodak X-Tall for 12 minutes in a dilution of 1+1, and I think this one is a good combination I would for sure use in the future again. Usually I'm very particular regarding the dust and grit on my images and try to keep everything clean, but for these shots in particular I left everything as it is because I thought that the dust specks and the grit on there would kind of serve the overall atmosphere that this place had for me. Later we saw some people chilling on top of the roof of one of the buildings, and of course we had to get there as well. The entrance to the roof was, I think, one of the tightest and most claustrophobic spaces I've been to in a long time, but in the end I would say the view was definitely worth it.
Nicht wegrennen damit.
Also selbst wenn ich wollte, ich könnte hier nicht wegrennen.
Oh, da war aber jemand schlau und hat diese Dinger da gebaut.
Aber da muss man echt aufpassen, dass das nicht runterfällt. So.
Cool, danke dir.
Warte mal, ich guck dir kurz in die Hand.
Definitiv.
So, were these my best shots I've ever taken? No, for sure not. I mean, alone the film choice maybe was not the wisest. I could have used fresh film and sometimes be more careful with my exposures to not underexpose. But even though many of the images are not good or great technically, I do still appreciate them a lot. Exploring interesting places and having interesting conversations about photography with people is one of the reasons why I'm shooting film. And even though these pictures might not be the best ever, they still represent that for me. I think there's not that much left to say, but if I could give you one last advice: kids, don't go and meet strangers you have just got to know over the internet, especially not in an abandoned place. But I mean, sometimes everything can just go fine and you have a cool experience and meet new people. Yay! And that said, I would say see you around, hopefully in the next video.